Thanksgiving service here this evening. We're so glad that you're here. I'm Pastor Steve Matthews from the Presbyterian Church here. We're very glad that you're here and celebrating this Thanksgiving week with us this evening in worshiping our Lord. I welcome you here this evening. I appreciate the support of the entire community for this particular service. And I hope that you will relax, that you will kick back, and that you will allow the presence of God to flow into this place as we are here to worship God this evening in this special Thanksgiving service.
And our call to worship.
That's right.
The world is filled with the glory of God, and we say,
Thank you.
The vines, the trees are filled with fruit, and we say,
Thank you.
Our tables are overflowing with food, and we say,
Thank you.
Our life is filled with love of family and friends, and we say,
Thank you.
We fill this house of God with our voices saying,
Thank you.
May our worship this evening be acceptable to God as we enter into His service of thanksgiving and praise. Amen.
Join us now for our hymn of thanksgiving, number 788 in your hymn.
Friends, hear and proclaim the good news.
In Jesus Christ we are forgiven. Thanks be to God.
Gracious God, give us
Humble, teachable, and obedient hearts, that we may receive what you have revealed and do what you have commanded. Amen.
reading from the book of Ecclesiastes. There is an appointed time for everything, and a time for every affair under the heavens, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time for scattering stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to be far from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow, a time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. What advantage has the worker from this call? I have considered the task which God has appointed for people to be busy about. He has made everything appropriate to his time. And he has put the timeless into our hearts. Without our ever discovering from beginning to end the work which God has done. I recognize that there is nothing better than to be glad and to do well during life.
When the time of David's death drew near, he gave these instructions to Solomon his son. I am going the way of all the earth. Be strong, be a man. Keep the mandate of the Lord, your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, commandments, ordinances, and decrees as they are written in the law of Moses, that you may succeed in whatever you do, and wherever you turn, and that the Lord may fulfill the word he has spoken concerning me. If your sons so conduct themselves that they walk before me in faithfulness with their whole heart and soul, there shall never be wanting someone of your line on the throne of Israel. David rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. David was king over Israel for 40 years. He was king 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. God said, whatever you ask, I shall give you. Solomon answered, you have shown great kindness to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you with fidelity, justice, and an upright heart. And you have continued this great kindness toward him today, giving him a son to sit upon his throne. Now, Lord, my God, you have made me, your servant, king to succeed David, my father. But I am a mere youth, not knowing at all how to act. I, your servant, among the people you have chosen, a people so vast that it cannot be numbered or counted. Give your servant, therefore, a listening heart to judge your people and to distinguish between good and evil. For who is able to give judgment for this vast people of yours? The Lord was pleased by Solomon's request. So God said to him, because you asked for this, do not ask for a long life for yourself or for riches, nor for the life of your enemies, but you ask for discernment to know what is right. I now do as you request. I give you a heart so wise and discerning that there has never been anyone like you until now, nor after you will there be anyone equal to you. In addition, I give you what you have not asked for. I give you such riches and glory that among kings there will be no one like you all your days. And if you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and commandments as David your father did, I will give you a long life.
We've now heard the word of God. Thanks be to God. An interesting scripture to have on Thanksgiving service, I think. Because after 40 years of rule, the great King David finally died. And his son, Solomon, now assumed the throne to rule the nation of Israel. Solomon, who became known as the wisest of all rulers, whose book of wisdom still inspires and guides us today. And it is said that the whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom. We find that in 1 Kings 10:24. Truly Solomon was a king of great wisdom. But as we join the story here at the beginning of 1 Kings, Solomon is a brand new ruler. And in his own words, he is just like a child. As one of his first actions as rulers, he offers this prayer to God that comes to him in a dream. And it's a prayer not for power, not for riches, not for a long life, not for armies to strike down his foes. Instead, he offers a prayer for a discerning, understanding mind to know the difference between good and evil. He may be just a child in his own words, but he's already made a very intelligent request. And God grants that request. So Solomon does become this great, wise ruler as we know it for his wisdom. But have you ever wondered how God granted that request to Solomon? How does a person become wise? What is it that causes a person to make good decisions? So, in order for us as Christians, because we want to make good decisions, we want to be wise in the ways of the world, I want to offer another story. A story not found in the Bible, but one that perhaps helps to explain Solomon's gift of wisdom, and I hope that it will grant us also a bit of insight and wisdom into God's grace as well. Shall we pray? Gracious God, may the words of my lips and the meditations of our hearts and minds be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Now we know that Solomon becomes king at the death of his father David, and he is but a young and inexperienced man, so he turns to God for guidance, and God nudges Solomon. Just as God so often nudges you and I, if we're paying attention, just nudges us gently. And God reminded Solomon to be sure that he is surrounded by good people, by those who would offer him sound and sensible advice. For we are influenced by those around us, especially those closest to us when it comes to time to make those important decisions in life. So Solomon, he began to examine the advisors of his father's court, who had been closest to his father and offered advice to his father David. He tried to determine if they were people of good character. And he found that some were, and he kept them close. And he found that some were not, and so he sent them away. But there was one person in his father David's court about whom he simply could not decide. This person was a man by the name of Benaiah. And Benaiah was the captain of the king's guard. And as the captain of the guard, that meant that he was empowered to protect the king against all adversaries. And Benaiah was a good soldier, and he was a good leader of men, and he performed that service admirably. The captain of the guard also had the responsibility of securing items that the king might need to help him with his duties, performing his duties as king. Benaiah had also been excellent at securing items for David. So what was the problem? Well, the problem for Solomon was that he had heard rumors about Benaiah, rumblings that Benaiah thought too much of himself, thought himself superior to all others in being able to accomplish his duties. And this concerned Solomon, as he needed this close advisor to be accomplished, but he did not want him to overestimate his own abilities. So what to do with Benaiah? So Solomon devised a simple plan. He would give Benaiah a task which was impossible to perform. And Benaiah, being unable to perform that task, would hopefully develop a degree of humility in recognizing that he could not do everything that he thought he might be able to do. So if Benaiah failed at this task, hopefully he would gain some humility about himself and not be so high and mighty. This seemed to be a good plan to Solomon. So it was just a few days later that Solomon found himself down in his court talking to a few of his advisors, and he saw Benaiah coming down the hallway out of the corner of his eye. And all of a sudden he said to the men around him, he said, "Well, you know, I've heard of a ring that I really think I might like to have, but no, it's impossible. There's no way." And Benaiah, taking the bait that Solomon had laid for him, ran up to King Solomon. And he said, "Good king, did I hear you say that you needed something? Just tell me what it is and I'll procure it for you." And Solomon said, "Oh, Benaiah, I know that you're very good at doing that." And he said, "No, I just heard a rumor. It probably doesn't exist. It sounds like something I'd really like to have, but I don't think anybody can do it." And Benaiah said, "Oh, no, good king. You tell me what you need. Your wish is my command. Just let me know. What is it that you want?" And Solomon said, "Well, I've heard that there exists a ring. There exists a ring. A ring that if one wears it, it will make you happy when you're sad. And yet, sometimes sad when you're happy. He said, wouldn't that be great to have a ring that if you were wearing it on your finger and you were sad, it would make you happy, even though sometimes it might make you sad when you were happy. Benaniah said, oh, great king, certainly I will procure this ring for you. And he turned and walked away, heading out to try to find this particular ring for the king. And the king just nodded his head and thought, oh, in a day or two he will return, because there is no such ring. It doesn't exist. But Benaniah, he was intent on finding this ring for the king. And so Benaniah went out, of course, first to all the jewelers of the kingdom, all the Hebrew jewelers that he could find. And he went to every jeweler and he asked, good sir, have you heard of a ring that makes a person happy when they're sad and yet sad when they're happy? And he went to jeweler after jeweler after jeweler, and he received the same answer over and over again. Why, no, sir, there is no such ring as that. What are you talking about? I can make all kinds of rings, but I can't make a ring that will do that. But Benaniah, not to be denied, he continued going to jeweler, and finally he got to a jeweler who told him, sir, there is no ring that makes a person happy when they're sad or sad when they're happy. What you're talking about is magic. If you want some magic, go talk to the sorcerers and the magicians. Don't come to the jewelers. We don't have magic. And Benaniah thought, well, maybe he's right. I need to go to the sorcerers. I need to go to the magicians. I'll go into the back lots. I'll go into the hallways, wherever I have to go to find these shady characters and find maybe they know of this kind of ring. And so Benaniah starts going to all different areas of the kingdom, searching out sorcerers and magicians, everything that he can find. And everyone that he goes to, he asks the same thing. Good sir, do you know about this ring that makes a person happy when they're sad and sad when they're happy? And over and over again, the magicians and the sorcerers would say, why, no, sir, I don't know about that, but I got a potion here that if you want someone to fall in love with you, or they'd say, oh, I've got this lucky rabbit's foot, you can take this if you want to buy that. And Benaniah said, no, I need the ring. And he went to magician and to sorcerer, everyone that he could find, and none of them would give him any news of a ring that could make a person happy when they're sad or sad when they're happy. And finally, Benaniah, his back began to bend, and he felt the pressure of failing at a task coming upon him as he didn't know what to do, and finally decided, well, I'm going to go to the merchants, maybe the merchants that trade with people all over the area, and not just here in the Hebrew kingdom. Perhaps they will have heard of rings like this. And so he started going to merchants. He went up to the caravans, and he begged the people. He said, good sirs, have you ever heard of this ring that makes a person happy when they're sad or sad when they're happy? Over and over again, he got the same response. No, we've never heard of such a ring. Benaniah finally decided that he was not going to be able to accomplish this task. And if you could have seen him physically, you could have seen his shoulders slumped, with his head down and his eyes down, because he began to realize he was not quite what he thought he was, because the king wanted this ring, and he just had not been able to find it. So he went back into the great city, and he went through, and as he got to the city, he realized, oh my gosh, there's a huge celebration going on in the city, because it was harvest time. And there was a huge harvest in the land that particular year. And the people were celebrating. King Solomon had declared a week of festivities, of celebration, of food and drink for everybody. And there was a huge celebration that was going on at this particular time. And as Solomon came into the city, as Benaniah came into the city, he had to wade through the crowds and push through the crowds to try to get up close to the palace. And as he was wading through the crowds and continuing to move through, all of a sudden he heard above the clamor of the people a small voice yelling out, rings for sale. I have rings for sale. Any kind of ring you could ever desire, I have for sale. And Benaniah, he kept moving through the crowd, and he thought, no, there's no way. I'm going off to the palace. And he goes through, he turns the corner and the palace is ahead of him, and then he hears clearly in his ear this small voice, "Rings for sale! Rings for sale! Any ring you could ever want, I have for sale!" And Benaniah turned, and he looked behind him, and there was a young boy on the street corner, there with a small wooden box in his hand. And he was crying out, "Rings for sale! Rings for sale! I have any ring you could possibly want right here for sale!" And Benaniah, thinking, well, I've got nothing to lose. I've already failed at this task. He goes over to the young boy and he says, "Young sir, you say you have rings?" And the boy says, "Yes, I have rings for sale." And Benaniah says, "Well, sir, I'm looking for a very special ring." And the boy says, "I have all kinds of special rings right here in my box." And Benaniah says, "I'm looking for a ring that will make a person happy when they're sad and sad when they're happy." And the young boy looked perplexed and looked up at the man and he said, "Well, you can look in my box and see if that ring is here. I don't know if I have your ring or not." And he held the box up to Benaniah. And Benaniah took the box and he opened the lid and he looked in. And just as he expected, there were all kinds of cheap little rings there in the box. And he didn't see anything that would fit his bill, of course. And he closed the box back down and he handed it back to the young boy and he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "The ring that I'm looking for that'll make a person happy when they're sad and sad when they're happy just simply isn't there." And he started to walk on when all of a sudden, the old man, who was the grandfather of the young boy that was sitting there watching his grandson, stood up. And he said, "Excuse me, sir." And Benaniah turned to the old man and he said, "Yes, can I help you?" And the old man said, "You're looking for a ring that can make a person happy when they're sad and sad when they're happy?" And Benaniah said, "Yes, sir, yes. If you've heard of this ring, if you have any knowledge of this ring, I will pay you handsomely just to tell me anything at all about this ring." And the old man says, "Well, I don't have such a ring, but I can make a ring like that for you." And Benaniah, he's beside himself. He said, "What? You can make that ring? You mean you can make this ring? I've been searching all over the kingdom to try to find this ring, but you can make this ring?" And the old man said, "Yes, I'll make one for you." And he goes over to his grandson's box, and he opens it up, and he takes out just a plain ring out of the box. And he holds it up, and he looks at it, and he reaches into his pocket, and he gets an engraving pen, because he's an old jeweler himself. And he engraves on that ring 3 Hebrew letters. The first 3 letters of the Hebrew phrase, Gam Ze Yavor, which means in Hebrew, "This too shall pass." And he finishes the engraving, and he takes the ring, and he hands it to Benaniah, and he said, "This, sir, is the ring for which you search." And Benaniah took the ring, and he looked at it, and he read those letters, and he was familiar with the phrase, Gam Ze Yavor, "This too shall pass." And as he was sitting there contemplating this ring, the old man said to him, "Everything on this earth will pass away." He said, "Those things, those earthly pleasures which make us happy, they will pass away. And those bad days, those difficult times that we had, they will pass away as well. The only thing that is eternal is God's love for us." Don't put your faith in earthly things, those things that temporarily make you happy or make you sad, because they all will pass away. Benaniah thought about what the old man said, and he looked at the ring. And he took the ring and he put it in his pocket. And he took out of his pocket a bag of silver coins, and he gave some of those to the old man, and he gave a few to the young boy. And he said, "Yes, sir, you truly have given me the ring that will make one happy when they're sad, and yet sad when they're happy." And he turned and he walked on up to the palace, into the palace, and there was a huge celebration going on in the palace. And Benaniah went on up to the king's feast room, And there were hundreds of people in there. And they were dancing, and they were singing, and they were eating, and they were drinking, and they were celebrating the great harvest of the kingdom right now. And as soon as Solomon saw Benaiah walk in the door, Solomon thought, oh, Benaiah has returned in the middle of our great celebration. Well, I won't be too hard on old Benaiah when he comes across. I hope he has learned some humility from this particular task. And Benaiah rushed over to King Solomon, and he knelt down before King Solomon. And he said to Solomon, as he held out his ring to him, if he can find it again in his cloak, as he held out the ring, "Good king, I have found the ring for which you were seeking." And Solomon was taken aback. He thought this was an impossible task that he had tasked Benaiah with. And so Solomon takes the ring, and he looks at it, and he reads the inscription, and he too understands the phrase, "This too shall pass." And he looks at the great celebration that's taking place in his hall, and tears begin to come down his cheeks, because he knows that this year of harvest is a great celebration, but there will be years ahead of drought and of famine and of hardship for the people. And they're not going to be happy like this forever, because he realizes that the things of this world are temporary. And he also realizes that the great temple that he plans to build will be a great and wonderful and beautiful temple, but it too someday will fall. And it will no longer stand. It will be gone, because the things of this world are temporary. And Solomon realized at that very moment that the only thing eternal in this world is the love of God for each one of us. Everything else in this world will pass away, but God's love remains. You won't find that story in the Bible. But it does remind us, it does give us some hope, some thought, to realize that regardless of how happy we are, and we may be celebrating Thanksgiving, we may be saying, oh, give thanks, and things may be looking up for us now, we know that that is a temporary condition in life, because everything in life changes. Everything of this world will pass away. The only thing that we can depend on as being forever and eternal in our life is the love of God. And for that, we give thanks. Everything in the world will eventually pass away. Only the grace and love of God are eternal. It puts things in perspective for us, doesn't it? It may not make us wise like Solomon, but hopefully it will remind us that our focus needs to be on God and not the things of this world. We can be thankful for the things that we have, but that should not be our focus. Our focus needs to be on God. All the worldly things, all the material things, all the beautiful sanctuaries, all the wonderful singing that we might hear, all those worldly material things, they will all pass away. But God is eternal. Amen. Shall we pray? Our God, we know that the things of this world are temporary, that they too shall pass. But on this night we thank you, O God, for giving us something permanent, something that is eternal, your grace and your love for us. In good times and in bad, you are always there. Your presence, your guidance, your comfort, your love will always be extended to us. So it is up to us to recognize and acknowledge you, our God, in and through all things. For you, our Lord and God, shall never pass away. We claim this promise this night, that only you can provide. And we give you thanks for that, our God. It is in your name we pray. Amen. Let us now respond to this word this evening by joining our voices together in our hymn of response, which is number 343 in your hymnal, Amazing Grace. We have to stand and sing this hymn.
Father in heaven, creator of all and source of all goodness and love, please look kindly upon us and receive our heartfelt gratitude in this time of giving thanks. Thank you for all the graces and blessings you have bestowed upon us, our faith and religious heritage, our food and shelter, our health, the love we have for one another, our family and friends. Gracious God, in your infinite generosity, please grant us continued graces and blessings throughout the coming year. This we ask in the name of Jesus, your Son, and our Savior. Amen.
Let us now remain standing and join in our closing hymn, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, verses 1 and 4 only, found on page 90 of your hymn. So.
Thank you.
and gracious God, help us to know that you're with us always. For indeed, your presence is never beyond us, yet at times we wander far from you. Continue to guide us and strengthen us, gather us ever closer to you and us, in turn closer to one another. Continue to turn our hearts to an outpouring of that love, particularly those most in need of it. And I ask that God's blessing descend upon you now and always, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
All right, I want to thank all of our service participants, which are listed on the back of your program this evening, except for our pianist, Sharon Hillier, who was left off, so we don't want to Also, we have a reception now downstairs with lots of cookies, even some cake and lunch and drinks and whatever may be down there. So you're welcome to go down the stairs or take the elevator down. I hope you'll come and fellowship with us to close out the evening this evening. And you need to get down there for those cookies because you need to remember this too shall pass. Have a great evening.